So I wanted to talk a bit this morning about the 80-20 rule. And so a lot of kind of health gurus have sort of some kind of rule like this, where it's either a vacation meal or like something like what we talk about here, the 80-20 rule. And at first kind of consideration, 80-20 is just really, you want to be on 80% of the time, and you give yourself some grace 20% of the time. But I want to be more specific with the things that really matter when it comes to really practical, effective, long-term nutrition. So the first thing, the 80% is, well, it's obvious that 80% of the time you want to be eating according to your metabolic type. So this gives you some grace. If you're a protein type and you've got friends who are vegetarian and you show up at their house and they serve you a meal that has got very little protein in it, or a protein that maybe your body doesn't necessarily agree with it, well, you know what, if you've been on 80% of the time, then you can have a meal there, be gracious, enjoy it for what it is, know that it's not according to your metabolic type, and just have some fellowship with your friends and not be offensive, not be negative, just enjoy it. And so that's really, when I think about the 80-20 rule, it's about everything in life, right? It's about just even giving people the grace to mess up every once in a while. And you want to surround yourself by people who are reliable 80% of the time, because life happens, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that fits in a relationship. But that 80-20 rule is just a really nice rule in your mind to kind of filter through and realize that, there's just sometimes in life things are not going to go the way that I want them to go, and being all negative or get all upset, or even when you're coming from the right place, that you want to do things better, like hit 80% of your workouts, give yourself some grace, that if you're just feeling crappy one day, you can say, no, I've been on this month, so I can drop this one and just spend some time resting. So 80% of the time you want to eat according to your metabolic type. The next one is 80% of the time you want to avoid the acid addictions. And so in other blogs in this nutritional series, you'll understand what those 7 acid addictions are. The third thing is 80% of the time you want to take your supplements. So whether that's a green drink in the morning, your omegas, your vitamin Ds, if you're taking a coenzyme Q10, those types of things, depending on your age, your gender, those things matter. And we'll get into that in more detail with what kind of things you want as far as a middle-aged man versus a middle-aged woman versus a child versus a senior. We'll talk more detail about these things, but 80% of the time you want to be on your supplements. 80% of the time you want to eat organic and avoid the herbicides and pesticides and GMOs. And number 5 is 80% of the time you want to drink clean, filtered water that's alkaline. So those are your 5 things that you want to hit your 80% on. So number 1, again, 80% of the time you want to eat according to your metabolic type. Number 2, avoid the acid addictions. Number 3, 80% of the time you want to be on your supplementation or your nutritional supplements. Number 4, you want to eat organic, avoid the herbicides, pesticides, and the GMOs. So those are the genetically modified foods. And then number 5 is 80% of the time you want to be drinking from a clean, filtered water source that is alkaline. So that's our 80-20 rule. Hopefully it makes sense to you, but ultimately what I want you to do is live a life of freedom, not a life of rigid law that just it becomes oppressive and is actually harder on your heart and your emotions than actually giving yourself a little bit of leeway, giving yourself some grace, being relational when it comes to your nutrition, and just really being appropriate so you're not being offensive. Again, I've crossed that line, and I've done some things that I'm embarrassed to admit in the past because I so wanted to be pure, I so wanted to be philosophically right, but in the end it just hurts the people around you, and it's just no fun being around somebody like that. And now I'm really aware when somebody's struggling with that, if they're really, really rigid and really, really legalistic with their life, for me, it's just not worth having those kind of people in my life, because it just stirs up some old emotions, some things that just don't make me feel good about being me. And any positive change you make, yes, everybody's got a long way to go, but any positive change you make is a great change. and you want to celebrate that. You don't want to get weighed down by the 1 or 2 times you messed up. You want to celebrate the 80% and know that, yeah, you're just going to give yourself some grace. And that's called life. That's being on the planet. That's rubbing shoulders with other people. And that's just being a nice human. That's what that is. And that's what we want. In Lighthouse, we want the nicest people, in Kelowna, in Lighthouse. Not only is it more of a joy to serve people like that, it's people, when you are like that, you just get better service too. It's just really cool. It is really the ultimate pay it forward. If you behave like that, you do reap what you sow. And so I hope you get a lot out of this. I hope that it's given you some freedom, but that's our 80-20 rule. And apply that to your nutrition, apply that to your relationships, apply that to raising your kids, talking to your neighbors, just how you do life, and you will have a much more joy-filled life.